Yeah, the message of my heart really is, God's power is made perfect in weakness. And for me, and I think for everybody else, the challenge is really talking about that weakness. Do I want to talk about that weakness? I mean, I'll talk to Jesus about it all day, right? Like me and him, we're good. But to bring that to the forefront of a relationship, to talk with other people, that's the challenge. Hi, my name's Jeremy Bear, and this is my testimony. Yeah, so I had been a Christian for about 9 years, came to know the Lord in 2001. Just being a member of the church, using any time, talents, treasures for God's kingdom, playing music, playing on worship teams. I got my first opportunity to teach at a little church, and it was horrible. And yet, this guy still saw something in me, that kept me going. And some years later, it was in 2009. I had just felt like God put it on my heart, that maybe He's calling me to church plant. And so, yeah, me and a friend, we started this church in northern Utah, and I mean, it started as a group with 3 families, so 6 people, and in a few weeks we had, maybe 10 people in my apartment, and that's where it started. And we grew from, those 10 people in my apartment to about 300 people in 2 years. So, I mean, it really just kind of exploded. And there came a point where I was feeling like maybe this church had outgrown my capacity, right? And I was looking at the capacity of one of our other elders, and I thought, man, I think God's transitioning the church to this guy. And sure enough, he was. I ended up moving to Hungary to teach at a Bible college, accepted an invitation to teach there, and we were there for 2.5 years. Things were going really good there. The school was going to transition to move to Budapest, and they said, hey, this is a great time if anybody wants to transition out. We ended up moving to Kragujevac, Serbia, where I connected with a Serbian pastor there and worked with him over the period of 5 years in Serbia. So now we're just completely immersed. I remember the truck pulling away, and we're in Serbia, renting from somebody who speaks 0 English, and it's like, all right, we got to learn language, got to learn culture, and figure out how to do, church planting in this context. About 3 years in, I had just become, some might call it burnout. I was just super tired, joyless, and finding myself really short with people. My wife was actually kind of feeling the brunt of that, my kids in the home. And there just came a point where my wife actually was like, I don't care who you have to talk to, like you need to talk to somebody and you need to figure this out. And I'm like, I don't know what this is to figure out, So I ended up connecting with a friend, and he referred me to somebody who had, cross-cultural ministry experience, but they were also a licensed counselor, and so they could do that online. And I remember my first meeting with her, virtual. I'm in Serbia, she's in California. I remember after answering those questions, she said, well, I mean, just generally looking at your responses, you definitely are on the scale as far as depression. And that just hit me like a wall, I'm like, well, wait a second. I've been walking with the Lord for, 15 years or so now. I've been pastoring, church. I'm pastoring a church. Like, I've been teaching in a Bible college, and there wasn't a framework in my mind to even compute what she was saying. So she actually referred me to a place in Turkey. So me and my family, we took a 2-week trip, and we went to Turkey for 2 weeks, and we all received some kind of intensive, just one-on-one counseling time. I walked away not absolutely healed from this, this depression, but walked away with tools and things to think about and resources to consider in order to start practicing. And I knew, like, even when we got back to Serbia, I needed to start talking to somebody about these things.
How does someone find those people that they can connect with? What advice would you give that person? First step to this path.
Yeah. The advice I would give somebody who's just kind of initially starting in this journey is, relationship building is a messy process, and some people you might actually step out and be vulnerable with, and this is the danger, right? Sometimes it can just bite you, and our tendency is to go, well, that didn't work. But I would just really say there are people for you to connect with that God has picked out, and you just have to keep reaching out, and just sometimes there's just the people that you jive with, and it's very natural, and it takes a while, but you've got to get there where you can get to a place where you can just talk about all the stuff that you would talk with Jesus about all day long, right? And we got to find people that we can talk about that face to face, physically.